How's it going, everyone? It's your favorite neighborhood Pirate Wolf boss, SilverDFanng, with more YouTube reactions. This time around, we got Why We Need More Queer Superheroes by Yuhoo Comic Reviews. First time I've seen Yuhoo Comic Reviews. I like his style. I like his voice. He's got a good way of doing shit. And yeah, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Not the queer side, which I do have like knowledge on, but more the comic book side. I've taken comic courses, comic history. I've done it on my own. I'm a big nerd, and this was really fun. Enjoy.
Since their beginnings, all the way back.
Okay, so this is Yuhoo Comics. I haven't seen his video, any of his videos before. Why we need more queer superheroes? You know what? Yeah, I have opinions. Mainly, I feel like a lot of writers have been turning like characters that have been around for decades gay just because it's popular. But with that being said, I do think we need more new gay characters because society is, you know, we should have different looks into society.
1930s, superhero comics have been power fantasies.
Yes.
They are a form of escapism
Yes.
that provides audiences with the ability to surrender themselves into the pages of these stories.
I don't know if I like using the word surrender. Surrender to the comic. I'm like, that feels weird. That feels like a power struggle. That feels like Dommy sub.
So they can have a taste of what it might feel like to have absolute control. Superman
was Sue
invented
Storm
by
not
two
good enough?
Jewish immigrants during the
Hey, come on, we need more Sue Storms.
start of World War II. His stories were emblematic of the political turmoil of the times. You'd often find Superman fighting corrupt politicians and putting greedy businessmen in their place.
Man, remember when the worst thing in the 1930s was corrupt politicians? I'm glad we fixed that. Almost 100 years. We definitely fixed that issue, didn't we?
Steve Rogers' first ever appearance was a loud and proud expression of...
By the way, yeah. Original Captain America straight up just fought Nazis. Captain America originally was American propaganda. Good propaganda, because fuck Hitler. But yeah, that's straight up that's Captain America punching Hitler. Red Skull came after when it became a little bit more taboo just to straight up have Nazis in your comics for kids.
American Glory. 1940s Captain America issue #1 showed Captain America smashing fascism, literally, by punching Hitler in the face. A whole year prior to America's involvement in World War II. And
right, this was even before they actually joined the war.
1939's Detective Comics issue 27 and the debut of Batman. Even Batman was nothing more than a normal guy. He didn't need superpowers. His story simply showed a man dressing up in a costume and saving the day. It's a simple tale, but it showed audiences.
No, I gotta show. What is with Robin's cheeks? It looks like he got like botched plastic surgery. It's like I need my cheek fillers, and they like are all saggy.
Dressing up in a costume and saving the day. It's a simple tale, but it showed audiences.
Right, that does look like the Joker in disguise as a little boy, which is weird to say.
Scared and unsure of what the.
But yeah, no, Rena, do not worry. This is why I planned ahead of time. So, like, whenever you can get to me, that's all good.
Future held. Superhero
Marvel
comics
cowardice on display, not making him a recurring supervillain. We need 2026 Hitler.
Still do that very thing. That's
Don't
why people
clip
love
that, please.
Books. They address contentious social topics and reflect the audience's concern in a way that's palatable, while also giving folks the ability to feel seen. We all love Spider-Man because we can relate to the deeper struggles he faces, like his issues fitting in, his troubles with money, his relationship hardships, and
the fact that the universe and society will never let you have a happy ending, yeah.
etc. The problem is that superhero comics have historically been told from a very specific
White.
perspective. And not only that, superhero comics have historically encouraged exclusionary practices,
White.
limiting the types of voices that were even allowed to be shown. In 2026, a lot has changed. We have more diversity, equity, and inclusion in the medium of comics, and I think that's a net positive.
X-Men has always been like the easiest way to like X-Men at a glance is talking about like not fitting in, being different, being shunned by society. That's, well, people of color and homosexuality. But like even then, like starting at like as early as like the 70s, the X-Men have been an easy place to put characters of culture, characters of different race. But starting with the 2000s, they've definitely done it more. I see like one of the characters from the Runaways who's bisexual. She's awesome. Four isn't, so Four's queer because Four like literally has no problem going male or female, and they talk about it.
Especially when considering the trials and tribulations.
I don't know about the Kitty Pryde. Is Kitty Pryde bisexual or asexual?
LGBTQ plus community. So I wanted to take a moment to spotlight the.
Thank you for clipping the full context.
Medium of comics. I want to discuss the ways
X-Men has been an allegory for racial comics since the day one. Yeah.
That be, and yet how, in spite of all of that, queer voices still rise to the top and have yielded some of the most powerful comics I have ever read. So join me in this video as we take a look at.
Yeah, this is a thing which it is definitely for marketing, but I am glad that DC does it. So they've done this for the last couple of years, where every year they'll do a special Pride comic showing off the big like superheroes that are LGBTQ that are running right now. They also do it for Black History Month, and they do Black characters. They do it for Hispanic Month. It's publicity and it's marketing, but hey, it's still cool. Kamala Khan, my goat. I love Kamala Khan.
How queer voices have been represented historically through the medium of comics, and why we need more queer superheroes. To understand the value of queer superheroes in a modern context, we first must look at how they have been represented historically. So let's go all the way back to 1954. If you're a fan of comics, you've probably heard about the Comics Code Authority. But if you're unfamiliar, the Comics Code Authority was a way for the comic book industry to address growing concerns about adult content in the industry. In 1954, psychiatrist Frederick Wertham published a book titled Seduction of the Innocent. Wertham argued that the comic book medium posed a risk to juvenile minds, as Wertham believed that comics promoted violence, racism, and homosexuality.
Video games, movies, TV, anytime a old white man with a little bit of sway wants to, look smart or politically charged, they always go, what about the children? The children and what they're doing is violent. It's always been this. It's always been this.
Sexuality. Wertham's book generated enough buzz that the United States Senate held hearings where Wertham argued that comics were a.
So literally, the big thing that they really, I believe it or not, I've actually taken a college course on the history of comics because I'm a dork. So this actually was really started because in the 50s, horror comics were so big. So you see Weird, you see Black Magic, you see a bunch of these. These are horror magazines that would do a bunch of horror stories. This is where Tales of the Crypt started. The superhero stuff was still there, but wasn't as popular. The superhero stuff is not really what they're talking about. Literally, the comic book association was started because of the horror comics, and there was a bunch of crime mysteries as well.
Contributing factor to the juvenile delinquency rates, with Wertham going as far to advocate for restrictions on the sale of comics to any
This was the
under
beginning of the silver age of comics.
The sale of comics could shatter their viability. The industry was quick to act. In 1954, the Comics Magazine Association of America was formed, and the Comics Code Authority.
1 second. I'm sorry. Your acronym is WE? WE! Your children should not be watching this horror comic. WE!
Magazine Association of America was formed, and the Comics Code Authority was adopted as a voluntary regulatory board that implemented a series of rules and regulations to ensure that comics were appropriate for younger.
I hope he mentions why they stopped, but just in case he doesn't. So we have different ages in comics. Golden Age is like literally anything. It's the beginning. Anything goes. 30s to whenever the Comic Book Association had started, that's Golden Age. Silver Age is the beginning of this to the 70s because Green Arrow, in a Green Arrow Green Lantern comic, they come into a room and Speedy is using heroin. And they're like, and this kind of broke the comic books code because like they're treating it as like this is a real thing happening in life, and they're treating it with like the humanity, they're treating it with respect, but technically it's talking about drugs. And that's when they realize, okay, we need to change, because there are topics that are hard for kids to understand, but they should understand, and comics are teaching it in a proper way.
Audiences. While the Comics Code Authority was never officially enforced,
we're the
distributors
destroyers of
refused
fun!
to sell comics that didn't abide by their rules. There was a huge list of rules, but some notable ones included: no comic magazine shall use the word horror or terror in its title.
How about
Scenes
horror?
of excessive violence shall be prohibited. Crimes shall never be presented in such a way to create sympathy for the criminal. But probably the most important rule to note for this video, sex perversion or any inference to same-sex relations is strictly forbidden. The comics
because
industry
it's
was quick to
American.
react as major changes were implemented into pages of stories like Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. For example, Wortham argued that the subtext of Batman and Robin's dynamic implicitly normalized homosexual relations. So Batman writers introduced Batwoman and Batgirl to balance out.
No joke, literally, Batgirl and Batwoman were invented because even back in the 50s, people thought they were kind of gay and they couldn't have it. It's like, no, they're not gay. Look, here's their girlfriends who are also superheroes. Like, no joke. Also, modern day Batwoman, lesbian.
The Caped Crusaders Act. The implementation of the Comics Code Authority meant a lot of different things. The comic book industry had to heavily self-censor stories, and as you can imply by the sexual perversion rule, part of that censorship included explicit exclusion.
Also, I gotta point out the weird hypocrisy. So the reason they were upset is because they were both men, not the fact that Bruce is a full-grown adult and Dick was a child. Yeah, gay perverts are, and by gay perverts, I mean perverts who see anything that's gay as like an insult. They're weird.
Of queer characters from comics. If you're a comic book fan, you also probably know that the 1960s, 70s, and 80s yielded some of the most transformative titles for the comic book space. It was in the 60s that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby would invent iconic characters like the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and the Hulk. It was also in 1962 that Stan Lee and Steve Ditko would invent the now iconic wall crawler known as Spider-Man. In the 1970s, the Bronze Age of comics further elevated the medium. Batman was retooled from a goofy character to a dark and gritty detective. Frank Miller's Daredevil revitalized the Man Without Fear, pushing the limit of what comics were able to show.
Oh my God, Born Again. Ooh, Born Again.
Defined as grimy street-level stories shrouded in violence. Chris Claremont notably revived the X-Men.
I love X-Men.
As his Uncanny X-Men introduced a brand new cast of characters alongside
by murdering the former X-Men.
Genre-bending concepts. And all of that is just the tip of the iceberg. The 60s, 70s, and 80s was constantly inviting change with groundbreaking storytelling techniques and exciting new characters. While the Comics Code Authority was constantly being challenged with more and more violent themes being added into the comics, one thing that was never explicitly shown nor really challenged during this time was the inclusion of queer characters. I want you to think about who your favorite superhero is. Spider-Man, Batman, Black Panther, the Hulk. I think a plurality, if not a majority of people answering this question are going to be pulling on comic book characters who were created decades ago.
Yeah.
The reason being, these characters have a healthy amount of stories for readers to pull on. And
Correct.
as mentioned before, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s was a time of innovation where comic book authors were penning character-defining stories. The sad reality is that when these incredible stories were being created, never once did any of these authors make the decision to create a explicitly queer superhero. The reason a lot of folks don't have a queer superhero as their favorite superhero is by design. The most important period in comic book history categorically excluded queer voices.
Also, a lot of the writers of Marvel and DC
Chef Spiral.
were also white. Most of the writers and artists were white. So that's also why a lot of the characters that like are showed are white, or they're done on from a white dude.
From the medium. Imagine if a high school and or college aged Peter Parker had queer classmates and or friends. Imagine if Batman stories were able to demonstrate the queer experience by utilizing his expansive cast of characters. Imagine if the X-Men mutant metaphor could have been explicitly established as an analog for
explicitly,
the LGBTQ+ struggle
not just
in the
like
early days of Claremont's career. There
not
are
just
so many
like
possibilities
obviously
that make
is.
sense. But unlike any other marginalized group, queer people were nowhere to be seen in the medium of comics because of the exclusionary policies of the Comics Code Authority. Real quick, if you're enjoying this video and you find it informative, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. As of recording this video,
You got
I'm
it,
almost at
Yahoo.
10,000 subscribers,
Yoo-hoo.
and I would love if I could hit 10K by the end of the month. That would mean the world to me. Anyways,
Me too.
despite all of these rules and regulations, I'm not gonna say that queer comics didn't exist. In the 1970s and 1980s, there was a underground queer comic scene. A lot of authors and artists were self-financing and self-publishing their stories, but a lot of these comics were significantly more explicit. They featured nudity and graphic depictions of sexual acts. So obviously, a lot of them were too raunchy to be given to children. Still, it's beautiful that in spite of these pretty intense regulations, queer voices rose above, creating their own stories and pursuing grassroots marketing campaigns to get their voices out there. As we continue into the 80s, queer...
The underground comic scene of the 70s, if you've never seen it, it's wild. They did not let anything go. Like, counterculture, man. They countered a lot.
Coded characters became more and more prominent in Marvel and DC comics. If you're unfamiliar, queer coding is when authors and artists utilize subtext to implicitly infer that a character is part of the LGBTQ+ community. One of the earliest examples of this in superhero comics dates all the way back to 1941 with William Moulton's Wonder Woman. According to an editorial blog post written by Alex Jaffe published on DC's official website, quote, Wonder Woman presented a society of Amazon women who freely exchanged love with each other as an alternative to engaging in mankind's proclivities for war. Marston himself, in a polyamorous relationship with two women, proposed that after millennia of letting men run the world, it might not be too bad of an idea to let women have a go at it. Although somewhat coded, the message of love beyond heteronormativity in Marston's Wonder Woman was obvious to anyone paying attention, and indeed was picked up upon by pop psychologists who used it as evidence to condemn comics as a medium for promoting what was seen as aberrant behavior. In response to this and other comic book controversies at the time, the Comics Code Authority was formed, suppressing overt queer themes in comics for a generation. I want to include this because I think some people like to debate about Wonder Woman's historical status as a queer character, but this is on DC's official website. If DC is hosting a blog post that states that Wonder Woman has always been queer-coded, I think you'd look kind of silly trying to combat that claim.
No,
this is
absolutely
straight from the source. But if we jump back to the 80s, during this time period, queer-coded characters became more and more prominent. Alongside the rules of the Comics Code Authority, Marvel Comics editor-in-chief Jim Shooter also instituted a strict no gays in the Marvel Universe policy during the 1980s.
Look at that face. See that face? That's the face of a disgusting man. Fuck you, Shooter.
Despite all of this, JMD Mateus created the character Arnie Roth, who first appeared in 1982 in the pages of Captain America issue 268.
I don't know
because
Arnie.
Mateus believed that Steve Rogers' experience was emblematic of the American umbrella, so it just made sense that he would also have a gay friend too. So Arnie Roth was established as a character who had known Steve Rogers since they were kids. He was Steve Rogers' best friend, and he was gay, but he was never explicitly gay. Instead, DeMatteis implied it through subtext, showing Roth holding his male roommate in a loving embrace, alongside other subtle hints as well. Shout out to
I'm sorry, what's subtle about this? He's either a Batman villain or he's gay.
my mutual Sid, who put me onto this character. I never heard of him until Sid told me about him, so huge shout out for that.
Shout out Sid for us.
When it came to actual super-powered characters, there were definitely examples of metahumans exhibiting queer-coded behaviors as well. For example, Mystique and Destiny were two mutants created by Chris Claremont.
Still going hard.
Hard.
Still going. Like their love and their marriage comics changed a lot. This has stuck since the 80s. Like, they are still a loving couple.
Mystique was a blue lady with shape-shifting abilities, while Destiny was a woman with precognitive powers that gave her the ability to foresee the future.
Not
Mystique
my
and
thing.
Destiny were constantly at odds with the X-Men, popping up in various issues as antagonistic forces who advocated for the betterment of mankind through extremist measures. According to Claremont, Mystique and Destiny were originally intended to be explicitly portrayed as a lesbian couple, but because of Shooter's Rule and also because of the Comics Code Authority,
you
Claremont
disgusting
was never able
man!
to show this. However, if you read these stories, the tension and unwavering commitment these two show each other is undeniable. It feels like they have known and loved each other for ages. And
Because they have. Weird little thing, Mystique actually doesn't age. And Destiny, Destiny was born in the late 19th century. I don't know why, but yeah.
reading these stories, it comes across pretty clear to me that they are undeniably bound by the tether of eternal love. Reading their relationship with that subtext in mind really makes the tragedies they experience together that much more powerful. But once again, you can't help but wonder how much better would it have been if these stories could have explored their relationship with explicit emotional depth and nuance. Simultaneously, DC Comics was also utilizing subtlety in the 1980s to portray queer characters in their books. For example, Maggie Sawyer was a character who debuted in John Byrne's 1986 Superman issue number 4. She was a police captain who worked with the Metropolis Special Crimes Unit. 1988's Superman issue 15 shows how Maggie lost custody of her child due to the fact that a judge deemed her to be an unfit mother. Then in Action Comics 600, it's implicitly inferred that Maggie is bisexual, as Lex Luthor claims both him and Maggie share, quote, similar tastes. When you put the pieces together, it seems like Byrne was trying to imply
I think Lex is asexual.
of her child.
I think Lex Luthor is asexual
in court. It's a pretty bleak picture and paints Maggie as a deeply sympathetic yet unfairly treated character. What's important to note is that this portrayal of Maggie's queerness is still on the nose enough to be approved by the Comics Code Authority. However, at the same time, unlike Marvel, DC Comics was also pushing stories that weren't approved by the Comics Code Authority
because fuck you, Shooter.
Featured characters with undeniable queer characteristics. Written by Mark Barr with art by Brian Boland, Camelot 3000 was a DC Comics
Never heard of this.
that debuted in 1982. What's notable about this book is that it was one of the first major comic series that was distributed directly to comic shops rather than being sold via newsstands. Because this book was being sold in brick and mortar locations via a direct market release strategy, it made it so that the book didn't have to answer to the Comics Code Authority. Hence why the book was able to feature a character named Sir Tristan, a male knight who was reincarnated into the body of a female. Throughout the story, Tristan is constantly rejecting their biological gender. It's not a perfectly nuanced way to describe trans issues, but it is a undeniable and explicit example of gender dysphoria.
It's a start in conversation.
In a comic book series. And all of this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's clear that within Marvel Comics, editorial made it impossible for authors to display LGBTQ plus characters. Inversely, DC Comics did utilize these LGBTQ plus characters to an extent, but for the most part, Marvel and DC Comics implicitly demonstrated queerness via queer-coded characteristics. However, things changed for the better in the 90s as superhero comics became explicit with their depictions of queerness. This was because in 1989, the Comics Code Authority was revised, making it so that following these revisions, comics were allowed to include queer characters. Marvel and DC Comics would follow suit, with probably the most notable example being Marvel's North Star, a character created in 1979 who was queer-coded throughout the 80s, but finally in the pages of Alpha Flight issue 106, North Star came out as gay, making him Marvel's first openly gay superhero.
And Canadian.
As we trace the legacy of queer characters in comics
French
through
Canadian,
the 90s,
but
the
Canadian
2000s,
still.
and the 2010s, more and more queer characters burst into the scene. However, that's not to say that LGBTQ plus characters' inclusion in comics was inherently positive, as many queer folks' depictions in these comics did border on problematic. For example, in the 90s, there was a lot of misinformation surrounding the HIV epidemic, and occasionally authors used gay men as a way to further fan the flames of misinformation. What I'm trying to say is just because a group...
I was waiting for this. So, this is the Hemogoblin. This is a white supremacist made to give people AIDS. And in the comic, the only people he gives AIDS to is a queer man and a alien woman.
Of people are being shown in the media, it doesn't mean that their inclusion is a net positive, as stereotypical depictions of marginalized groups can result in deeply bigoted perspectives becoming normalized in the cultural consciousness.
I don't think he pops up again.
Queer representation in the
good
comic
reason.
book medium has been a rocky road. While progress has been measurable, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. The reason I outlined all of this is because I truly believe understanding the tumultuous state of regulated expression in the comic book industry demonstrates why we need queer representation. To put it bluntly, queer people have been excluded from the medium of comics for far too long. They are the only marginalized group that has been explicitly disallowed from comics during the Silver and Bronze Age, meaning that we don't have a classic queer superhero because the industry never allowed one to exist. What makes this more upsetting is that I love queer superheroes. Cards on the table, I am a cis, het, straight man. I have a lot of blind spots when it comes to this topic.
Mostly.
I tried to make sure I covered this topic with nuance, but if I spoke on something in a way that was inappropriate or incorrect, please let me know down below.
I think he actually did pretty good. Like, his wordings was pretty good.
Below, and I'll do my best to correct it. But what I can tell you is that as a cis-het straight man, I've read a lot of stories about cis-het presenting and presumably straight male superheroes.
It gets boring.
And as somebody who's been reading comics for a while, I am getting kind of tired of these stories.
Yeah.
It feels like a damn trope. Every other superhero comic is about a vigilante.
I mean, I've told people, like I enjoy reading like GLBL stuff that like isn't something that I'm used to because it's a different story. That's what a good story is it tells you something that you're not used to.
Dude who's got some type of internalized trauma that he doesn't know how to deal with. So he puts that
Welcome,
energy into crime fighting.
Hey,
These
guy!
are
It's been so
super
long.
violent,
How have you been, my friend?
hyper-masculine guys who believe they are doing the right thing, but a lot of the time they fail to process why their actions would be perceived as scary or harmful to those around them. Does this not sound familiar? Batman, Daredevil, the Hulk, Moon Knight, Ghost Rider, Black Panther, and so many other...
Okay, I will say Moon Knight is different because of the bipolarness and the in multiple identities. So I wouldn't say he's just a normal white cis man, but I understand.
Male superheroes fall into this archetype where their male rage boils up into epic displays of violence. And yeah, dude, it's really damn entertaining, but at the same time, there's only so much of it I can take. When I read James Tynion's Detective Comics, one of the most interesting characters in that run was Kate Kane, aka Batwoman. In this run, she had a philosophy for how to fight crime that felt diametrically opposed to Batman's own worldview. The ideological difference between these two characters is what made Kate Kane such an interesting person to read about, and seeing how Tynan pulled back the layers of her psyche only made me more interested in her as a character. A big reason Kate Kane walks about the world the way she does is because she is lesbian. Her experience.
Okay, she's lesbian, but she's also ex-military, and she also is related to Bruce, so she also has a little bit of that, like, higher crust. Like, yes, being a lesbian, it's a big part of her character, but there's a few reasons why she sees the world very different than Bruce.
Experience as a lesbian woman fundamentally
Taking all overtime I can get before work makes us clean suffer too. Oh, that's fair. Well, I'm glad to see you, bud.
It's during that read that my admiration towards Kate Kane was set in stone. Kate Kane is my personal favorite member of the Bat family because of how distinct her voice is.
Look, she's great. I love Nightwing. Nightwing. Dick Grayson is just like, he's my favorite in the Bat family. I love Dick Grayson.
Also, it's just refreshing to read a story about a superhero without it
Did
being
you know you
centered
can
around a
pet
dude
me?
with unchecked
Check out the
anger
Pet
issues.
Cafe.
Mystique and Destiny's explicitly queer relationship in the Krakoa
So
era
cute.
of X-Men plays
So
a
cute.
huge role in helping
As someone who
unravel
read the Krakoa era,
complicated nation state
so
of Krakoa.
good.
Every time
These two are
lovers
so much
were on the
fun to
page,
watch.
I was at the edge of my seat.
Yeah, me
Poison
too.
Ivy and Harley Quinn's relationship.
This one is interesting, because this is characters that weren't the characters that were probably so. This is where it's like, I wish we could get an answer, because Poison Ivy always did feel queer coded, which is good. Harley Quinn is an interesting one because Harley Quinn was made for the Batman animated series, and she's bi, but it's like, I don't know. But with that being said, I love the relationship. These two are fucking adorable.
And G. Willow Wilson's Poison Ivy series is beautifully explored. Both Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn have baggage and interpersonal issues, and watching them work through those issues truly feels like a relatable experience that had me smiling with every issue. And the list goes on. There are so many examples of queer superhero comics that feel fresh.
Okay, let's see if I know. So that is the second Aqualad. I believe he's bisexual, but usually he is more into men than women, which is normal. That is Connor Kent. No, that is no, it's not Connor Kent. That's Clark's son. That's Clark and Lois Lane's son. Yeah, bisexual. It's been a really, his story's been really interesting for the last decade. Nubia, Queen of the Amazons. That's a Green Lantern from Far Sector. I haven't read the comic, but I've heard nothing but good things. I don't know that Flash, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and sadly, I don't know who she is.
And exciting. That is why queer superheroes are so important. Not only
Good
have
luck,
they been
Rena.
excluded from the medium and deserve some form of course correction for the way they have been treated, but also queer characters breathe fresh air into a medium that is dominated by stories that feel all too similar. Unless you want to read the same boring cishet male-centered stories for another 70 years, you should want more queer superheroes.
I agree.
If you're a fan of comics, you should be a fan of queer superheroes.
I agree.
There's no doubt in my mind that the inclusion of queer characters in the medium makes comics better for everyone. And
Again,
that's why
I agree.
we need more queer superheroes.
We need more gay people.
If you're watching this video in June, happy Pride Month. And
Yay, happy Pride Month. Hey, thanks for checking out this video. Check me out on Twitch, SilverDFanng, 2 N's in Fang. Check me out on Twitter and Blue Sky under the same name. Also TikTok. Have a great night.